Science. Paranormal. Drinks. Three tortured souls. Entertain, educate, recreate, and intoxicate.
I love that. I love that so much.
So
I have to just, every time I see my picture, it looks like somebody either kicked my ass and I have two black eyes, or I didn't sleep for 3 days.
Well,
that's
my problem.
That's what you look like when you go down a rabbit hole.
That is true.
3 days later, that's Tim, zombie Tim.
It's true. It's true. So Jade Kitten,
So
how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
A whole
Good.
month. I just
Whole
read my
month?
paper just a few minutes ago.
Time
Me too.
flies.
I mean, I read it when you first sent it to us, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And then this afternoon, like literally, like 5:15 today,
Yeah.
I was talking with JD, and I was like, we were talking about a project we're working on. It's like, all right, I got to go because I got to start looking at what we're doing the show tonight. I have a whole month, and I still wait until the day of to really look at it.
It's because we're professional.
Yeah, that's how you do it. That's
That's
you know
right.
what? I think that's the high stress thing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, now I got to do it. So
Now you got to do it.
I pound it, and now I think I'm an expert.
I see Daniel. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, Daniel Reed.
Diane
Diane.
Wheatley.
Very cool.
All right.
What we
Well, I have to say, per our standard operating procedures, hey, Robert, just like I kind of mentioned in the description, we started out with a whole different idea. I think we were going to do something about construction and fixing up houses causing more hauntings, and just kind of like looking at that idea and seeing what all that was about. I started Googling it, and I can't remember where I came across this paper, but it was just it was a look at the allegations or reports of paranormal activity and how it impacts homes' values. And I went ahead and just kind of clicked on it, and it was actually a very nice paper. I think me and Kenny before the show, Dave, I'm sure will agree. We talked a little bit about the numbers that they got back. It was a little low, but I mean, what are you going to do? It's certainly varied. It's well over 30 states that they got the information back from. So at least geographically, it's centered out. It's out. But still, we started talking about this paper. I shared it in our message board, and we ended up talking about this paper far more, giggling, especially about one. I'll let Kenny pointed that out. He thought that was the best. I'll let him handle that one.
We figured out that I would end up outbidding Kenny on many haunted houses.
Yeah, but it was really interesting, and I liked it because I think we've talked about this before with people that investigate private homes and then tell people, your house is haunted or it has a demonic entity or it's evil, and there's not much you can do about it. And the aftermath, if there is some aftermath, well, maybe I should say the aftermath that could relate, especially if they're selling their house because they're terrified and they just get rid of it. But I've never run into anything that had any type of data. I'm sure that there were, but I haven't run data-backed findings about that. And so we had a good time. So I'll just say I want to give the author credit before we talk about it. We certainly like the paper, but I'm going to mess up the name, so I apologize. It's by Dr. Francesca Ortegren. Ortegren, Ortegren.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
You obviously haven't drank enough yet. So
Yes.
Actually, I started drinking an hour before. That's how come I
maybe
sound
that's
so
why
good.
you got it right.
That's right. So a little bit about her. So with this paper, just a little. She I'm sure she did this paper, but a little bit about this. She has a bachelor in psychology from Texas Tech, her master's in experimental psychology from Texas Tech, and a PhD of cognitive and experimental psychology from Texas Tech. So at some point, I think she certainly at least knew what she was doing while she put this together, which I think lends a little bit of credence to the findings, or at least what she collected. So with that, I'll just, I kind of talked about my ideas, but I'll send it over to you guys to think about what your initial thoughts were about the paper. And I'll go with, oh shit, I got it right, Kenny.
Whoa. Damn, I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I did it like this, and then I remember, I was like, okay.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I read it, and it was interesting. And I'll say that. I think when it comes to like data from respondents, I have issues with that. Because it's all self-reporting. It's like they literally put out a survey. And the survey was put out in from October 11th to 16th. So a couple days in 2019, I think. Let me make sure that,
right before Halloween.
Right. Yeah. In the spirit of things. There you go. That's what you mentioned there, Tim, before the show. So this was put out as a survey, and people responded talking about it. And I guess the biggest issue I had with this, aside from it's self-reported, which is, I guess there's not much problem with that. People are just reporting stuff. But the numbers that we get in this are all percentages rather than actual numbers of like how many people responded a certain way. And I always find that weird because we're dealing with, so the numbers that we do have is that there is a total of 1,015 people surveyed. And they used data from 30 states. Total states were used were 30. Anyone below 10 respondents, they disregarded that state, or they didn't use it. So I guess that's fine, but now it's like, we don't know if one state was 10 and another state was like 40 or 50.
Yeah.
You average it out. If you average it, it would be 30 people per state that they used. But again, like when they give you percentages of, well, almost half of the people surveyed in these states did this. And we don't know if does that mean 5? Or does that mean like 20 or 25? It's a big difference, I think, especially when you're talking about like a state, like say Texas, and you only have 5 respondents. I mean, I don't think that's a good representation of the state. But again, I'm just speculating because I don't know. I don't know what the numbers were. But besides that, it was an interesting read. They definitely compared millennials with boomers, which I think we're all boomers here, right? Aren't we?
I'm X.
We're Gen, or what? So what? Let's establish that. What is that? What is a boomer?
Gen X, I think, starts in 65.
Let's see. The generation is often defined as people born from 46 to 64. Okay, so we're Gen X, I guess. Gen X. So that's even older than us. Wow.
Don't say that. I'm sorry, sir. What was that wow for?
Wow,
I'm still a young
than us.
Wow.
I guess I didn't. I see like a generational gap there to begin with when I thought it was like me versus against them, but now I see that it's a wider gap, which also, and we'll get into it, but I think experience and some of the stories that we all have lived through in the news that we would be aware of, especially if you're into this. I don't see this much affecting people that really aren't into the paranormal scene or wouldn't care either way. But some of the experiences that we've grown up with, see like in search of and unsolved mysteries and stuff like that.
Oh man,
that'll have an effect, and we can see it, and we can see newspaper reports, and so that's my general opening statements. I'll save more discussion for later, so I'll pass it off to Dave. Down to Dave. What?
Right. Yeah, like you guys, a little bit of a last minute read on this one, but some of it's not surprising when you dig into it, based on what was reported. The age difference that's a little bit interesting. We were talking about it before the show, and we'll get into it later. But to me, the most interesting thing was people who didn't believe in haunted houses were still self-reporting they would be less likely to buy a house that was haunted. So it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. There was a couple other points in here that were interesting. I mean, if you're into trying to buy and market and maybe flip and turn and sell haunted houses, reportedly haunted houses, there's a lot of good information in this paper to help your marketing efforts. I don't know. To me, it wasn't none of it was really crazy enlightening, but it was a fun read. I find it interesting that people, certain people would refuse to buy a haunted house or be less likely to buy a haunted house. And then the fun part is when they start comparing it to how likely would you be to buy a house next to a cemetery, or how likely would you be to buy a house that had a porn filmed in it?
Yes.
Or a murder house. And it's like, this must have been a fun survey to design. And I'm sure the researcher was having a great time coming up with some of these questions. I have no problem with percentages. That's, to Kenny's point, to speak to that, that's how they report polls and surveys commonly. If you know the total number, you can back calculate the actual numbers. But yeah, when you start getting down to 10 or less per state, you don't, I'm not sure it's designed to have, and we'd have to ask the researcher, but I'm assuming they didn't design it to have enough power to make any real conclusions about a individual state. You have to take the entire thing and analyze it that way. And then the one thing they point out in the methodology is they actually did a statistical analysis with chi-square test of independence, but they don't ever list any of the p-values anywhere. They say they assessed it at p point less than 0.05, but there's nowhere that tells you anywhere if these were significant or not. Some of them you can probably look at the graphs within the article and realize they're probably significant just by the large difference. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to actually, Jen just sent me a text. She's like, hey, do you guys ever think about or talk about having the authors of these papers on? I'm like, we do. And we have. I mean, the Bigfoot researcher we reached out to.
I have not heard back from him yet.
But we're open to that. And it would be actually interesting to invite her on to discuss this in a little more detail at a later time. But again, fun read. I do part of my job for work is sales and marketing. So I looked at it both from the survey standpoint, the data standpoint, as well as a sales and marketing standpoint. And there's some interesting stuff that we'll get into tonight.
Yeah, I actually I was going to message you guys about reaching out to her to see if she wanted to come on, but it was like 2 days before the show. We were like, that would not
done it with less time.
Yeah, it's hard to do when you switch the topic at the last minute.
Yeah, I kind of felt like maybe just telling the author of this research paper, hey, can you come on in 2 days and explain this might not have been a good approach. But I'm like you, it's interesting, and it's interesting enough that I think it would be kind of cool to come back to at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let me, I'm going to try to find where she points out like the reason. I think this is a good paragraph. We surveyed, I'm going to read from the paper, so I apologize. But we surveyed 1,015 Americans to assess whether people believe in the supernatural and to what extent of creepiness factor of a home deters or perhaps attracts buyers to compared to negative characteristics like being located near a waste management facility. So the results suggest that people are much more concerned with the potential for crime than they are being haunted by ghosts. Over 75% of our respondents said they'd be less likely to buy a home if it was located in a high crime area near a prison or was previously used as a meth lab.
Which would actually probably be the more likely haunted locations, but whatever.
In contrast, 54 were put off by the idea of purchasing a haunted home.
Oh.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's a really nice graph here. And haunted kind of falls into the middle. Let me see if I can.
Middle-ish. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
hold on.
that tells you, though, 54% were put off by the idea, but there's 46% of weirdos that are totally into this. Well, not totally, but at least open to it and wouldn't be
Right.
put off by it.
Let me see if I can get this. So you can kind of look at.
There we go.
There we go.
That's what I said. I'd sign up for this in a minute.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so there you go. So at the bottom of the graph just shows like the most likely that you would buy, and the highest is the least likely that you would buy. And right there, haunted kind of falls right in the middle at 54%, which was pretty interesting. But looking above it or below it, so people were.
I don't know if anybody's bought a foreclosed home and you moved quick on it, and you know, my sister, I think they had a foreclosed home that was owned by the bank, and after some of the experiences they have, I'd probably put that right up there with high crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's interesting how these are rated: natural death, pornography, near cemetery, haunted, near highway. Yeah, I mean, some of these, yeah, high crime, of course.
High
Waste
crime. Yeah,
management,
that makes sense.
Okay. Former meth lab. Yeah, that might be something that would deter me. Near a prison. Yeah, okay. But a murder in the home? I don't know.
Nah. I don't,
Unless it
me
was
neither.
kind of a touristy attraction and people were always bugging you. But I don't know. Near highway would be up there with for me.
Yeah.
I don't like the noise. That would drive me absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But haunted cemetery, pornography, I don't know. I might be less likely to buy a house if pornography was filmed.
Yeah.
I'd certainly blue light.
You definitely are not getting
Got it.
backlights.
I'd certainly blacklight it and make sure.
Oh,
It looks
I
like the
did that
scariest.
at a recent place I stayed overnight.
Mm-mm.
Slept in a sleeping bag on the floor.
And at that point, you're hoping it's blood.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
well, that won't show up with a black light.
Well, that's what your luminol's for.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, differentiate between urine and other things and blood.
Yeah. I mean,
Anyway,
I
interesting.
what I was surprised about is like for me, because the you mentioned near a highway would be a turnoff for you. Like, yeah, that totally would be the same thing. But even just a main street, like the main, not necessarily a highway, but the main street through town or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I would not like, because some of the places, especially around here, you get out onto the main streets and there's stores everywhere and apartment buildings and stuff. I don't like that because that's still too busy. But yeah, I'm surprised that people were like pornography house was below haunted.
With the internet and cell phones, there's probably more houses that have had pornography filmed in them. Than
You're right.
It may not have made any money for them, but it could have been filmed.
See, this is Jade Kitten brings up this point, which I was just getting ready to too as well. I mean, if you've bought a house that was previously owned, they've had sex in that house. So the only difference is that someone filmed it.
But
Yeah.
not with 7 dwarfs and a donkey.
That's when you walk in the house for the first time, you're like, hey, this place looks familiar. I know where I saw this.
If you see a house that looks familiar to you from a porn, you saw with 7 dwarfs and a donkey, we got to have a talk.
Whoa. Hey, I was curious. How does that work?
Delete browser history.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah, we got you, Kenny. If something happens, we'll get up to Buffalo and.
Yeah, but only if your ghost communicates with us to go and delete your browser history. That'll be the deal.
There you go. Okay.
in the middle of the night. Psst, hey guys, some serious shit right now. Hey, I'm fine, but get your ass to Buffalo.
I mean, I'm dead, but otherwise I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All
Sorry.
right, so
Tim.
it's fine. So some key findings that they listed. Start with number one. So 1 in 4 supernatural believers reported that they're more likely to buy a home if it was haunted, someone died there of natural causes or murder,
Mhm.
or it was located near a cemetery. So 1 in 4, I would have probably guessed that to be a little higher if they were believers, unless they were believers and they were afraid. I, it seems like the haunted thing is kind of catching on and a niche for houses or people to want to buy. Especially, well, I don't know. This is just an opinion out of total ignorance, and it might be just because I hear it more, but it seems like famous houses that are, even if they're on TV or they have a television show about them or anything that happens, it seems like that they're rather sought out, and I kind of think it's for monetary value that you can make after you purchase the house or facility or building. So I would have kind of went higher with that.
I want to break this down. Like I'm trying to.
But go ahead,
with
Kenny. Sorry.
With the whole numbers thing, like I really try to break it down sometimes and try to understand this more. So when it says 1 in 4 supernatural believers, so that tells me that we know that there was 1,015 people surveyed. 44% were designated as believers in supernatural.
So let's round it to 1,000 so we make this easy. So 440 people.
I already did the math, Dave.
Oh, okay.
And I used the calculator. So that got us 625.
Okay.
In the survey that were believers.
Okay.
So 1 in 4 brings us to 156.3. So there's a third of a human in here. So
damn.
I mean, I guess this is where it gets weird for me, and we can move on from it. We don't have to dwell on this, but that means only 156-ish people out of 1,000 are being singled out here as saying that they were more likely to buy a haunted house, and it doesn't seem like that much to me. Maybe it's just me. It just doesn't seem like a lot.
That's where I was at with my comment.
Because there's so many people that are like, I mean, we've interacted with so many people that would love it or already claim to be in a haunted house. I mean, that's something that I always find interesting is how many ghost hunters claim to be in a haunted house of their own.
That was my caveat with, believing in the supernatural might not mean that you are interested in actively seeking.
That's true. You could be so scared of it.
Right.
Or you could be, that's what they didn't look into is like, okay, if you're a believer, what's your belief do to you? Are you afraid of it? Are you interested in it? Are you seeking it? I mean, that would provide a lot more clarity on some of the stuff we're talking about here. One of the things to keep in mind when you do general polls and surveys like this is the idea is if you get a certain number of people, it's supposed to be a good general representation of the population. So what they try to do then is if you can assume that, then you assume that, you're extrapolating a bit and saying, okay, well, from this study, if it represents the true population, we could still extrapolate that and say 1 in 4 people overall across whatever area you want to say might, reported they're more likely to buy a home. But, 1,000 people, I mean, it's still a pretty good survey size, but again, it always depends on the demographics and if it is a true sampling of the population. I guess there's a lot of nuances in that.
I think that just bugs me, and I'm not good at stats. I'm not even going to try to say the whole word, but this is not my area. But then when I think of when I do the math here, and I see like on average, it should be about 30 people per state, and if I'm looking at, like I just looked up the 2023 estimated population of Pennsylvania, which is 12.9 million. And I just have trouble accepting that 30 people are supposed to represent or be a good representation of almost 13 million people. You know, and depending on how this survey got out to them, you know,
Sure.
like how was this geared toward people with a tendency to, or were they had like passing interest? I don't know. Again, maybe it's me. This is a shortcoming of mine, so I don't understand it completely, but these are my issues.
Yep. And again, it would have been helpful for them to actually list what their statistical results were instead of just the percentages. But
Yeah.
that would have been helpful. It's like, okay, great, 1 in 4. Was
What
it
does that mean?
significant? Was it even significant?
Yeah.
Well, the numbers get even more crazy on the next point.
let's pile on top of it.
So JD, actually, I saw this question pop up from
Here we go.
JD. So if you go to, is there any correlation between alleged haunted homes and homes with decreased value due to disrepair? I don't remember seeing that in here.
Not
Yeah.
here. No.
I think they did something called a creepiness factor, though.
Yeah.
But
Let me see. There.
oh yeah, reported haunted. Someone
Yep.
was murdered there, located near a center. No, so they didn't. I don't think they did anything with looking at homes of disrepair.
I think creepy. The word creepy comes up later in just like a description.
Yeah, it has. Well, the creepiness factor of a home is subjective. We consider a home to be creepy if it has met one of the following criteria: reported to be haunted, someone was murdered there, located near a cemetery.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, no, that wasn't addressed in this particular paper.
Okay. I mean, homes in disrepair, they're supposed to be haunted. So, I mean,
So I think this was one I kind of want to bring. Like, I don't know. You know, Kenny and I were talking a little bit before the show. You know, was this like a paper? The surveys were in October. It might have been a fun statistical whim study to get an idea for something for Halloween.
Yeah. like a
I don't.
fluff piece.
Yeah, with some thought behind it. I mean, some thought is behind it. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah, but I don't think it was meant to be anything that we're going to take anything away from. Like Dave said, like we're going to walk away with some pretty sound findings that we could predict in the future with this, but just something fun, like what we're doing. And I think that's probably, I'm guessing, I could be completely wrong, but I kind of think it was just something that came up around Halloween and they did something fun with it.
Here's one thing that's interesting, back to JD's question. Sorry. When they start talking about millennials, let me see here. Many 31% are interested in spending under 200,000, which can severely limit their options throughout much of the country. In a previous report, we noted that 67% of millennials are willing to buy a fixer upper, which jives with our current finding and suggests that millennials might be more willing to deal with character flaws like faint whispers of the dead in the night. Okay, whatever. Kind of out on a limb there, but I don't know. We'd have to pull the previous study and see what they said there. But yeah, I mean, that wasn't directly addressed. And they kind of sort of in the way they did their analysis, but again, they didn't just go through it and give us anything besides percentages, but they were looking for tests of independence, or what you could also say test of association. It's like the 2x2 contingency table.
Yeah.
You have supernatural belief, yes or no. Buy a haunted house, yes or no. And they're looking to see if there's an association or if those things are truly independent or not. Mm-hmm. So it's not really a correlation, it's a test for an association. I know it's a minute difference in words, but that makes a bit of a difference. So I really wish they would have reported that.
Well, maybe we can email her.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. What else you got there, Tim?
All right. Key finding number 2. People who have had supernatural experience in a home are 13 times more likely to pay more for a house than people who have never had a supernatural experience in their home.
Mm-hmm. I guess again, the question for me
Yeah.
would be, was that experience in the past good or bad? What did
Yes.
it do to them and for them? Because it'd be really interesting to see that type of information. Because I'm thinking, if you had a paranormal experience, a haunted experience, whatever, and you took for me, if you took a really fascinating look at it and you wanted to know more, yeah, obviously I'd be willing to buy a place that supposedly, not famously, I'm going to make that clear, not
Yes.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
not
Yes.
famously haunted, but supposedly haunted based on prior inhabitants. And it'd be great if you had a bunch of people who didn't know what was going on there before. You could document they didn't, and they still reported things. That would be a place that I think people would be very interested in, especially if you had an experience you're trying to seek others, but you're not afraid of it.
Right. Yeah, that was like comes back to number one. Like, what was the experience?
Mm-hmm.
Like 1 in 4 supernatural believers reported they're more likely. What was the previous experience? I thought the same thing as well. And 13 times more likely to pay more.
This goes across both. Like it's both sides here. So both teams, if you will. And I'm wondering if part of the factor, because we don't know what the factors are here. We don't know the reasons behind why they would actually buy. We just know that according to their history, they've had this history. Fair warning, the poetry club is letting out, so might get disturbed in a moment. But
I would not buy a place that had a poetry club in it.
I
100% of Kenny's would buy a place next door to a poetry club.
I want to throw this out there and say that one of the possible reasons would be in order to start a business or get famous. Because if you buy a house that has a reputation, either the previous homeowner disclosed this, or you hear neighborhood stories or something like that. You read something in the paper, and you find out, this has some legend attached to it. Then it could be a potential moneymaker where you're like, well, I'm going to buy the house, not necessarily going to live in it. So every weekend, I'm going to rent it out.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about adding in. They're just asking, are you going to buy it? So are you going to buy it for commercial use, or are you going to buy it to live in it? So it's just the purchase that they're looking at.
Question.
Maybe.
I'm seeing this. I've seen this multiple times where people buy a house and they don't actually live in it. Like the Hinsdale house that I've been to a couple of times. He doesn't live there. I mean, it's people rent it every weekend and during the week. So it's bringing money in. What I'd say about him, though, he at least puts the money back into the house. So that's nice. But that's something I just wanted to put out there because that's a possible cause.
Yeah.
All right.
Where am I? Millennials were 13 times more likely to buy a haunted home and 17 times more likely to pay more for it than baby boomers. But this might be due to financial reasons. Yeah.
Haunted house. I'm thinking, as soon as I read that, I was thinking that the millennials were probably looking to get a cheaper price because of the reputation, and therefore they were more likely to buy one because of that, as opposed to baby boomers who, and then we'll just jump into this, you have more experience there. You have the baby boomers that, again, we're talking born between 1946 and 1964. So they've lived through mainstream worldwide news like Amityville, The Conjuring House, The Exorcist, stuff like that was in the news. And we've seen how people over the years, we see how those houses can be pestered. Amityville, the people that own that, they went ahead and changed the address. They changed the address of the place and changed the side, because the side facing the street is not the front of the house. It's the side of the house, but they've changed that and windows in order to help disguise.
That's iconic look.
Yeah.
Like people know that look.
Right. And people visit. I mean, and there's signs outside of it. When you walk along the sidewalk, there's actually a sign telling you you can't loiter, you can't stop here and take pictures. And we've seen that, and I don't know how many people see it intimately, but I can give the experience of the Conjuring House with Norma, who was one of the previous owners, and I know the hell that she went through with people trespassing constantly onto her property because they read some books, they read the stories, and they wanted to get on or look in the house or take pictures. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons she sold, because she had to get out of there. She couldn't take it anymore. And I mean, that would be my reason for not buying a haunted house or allegedly haunted house. Yeah, famously one. Because even one that just had a local reputation, it's still going to be a local reputation for, you know, people that are daring, or, you know, when it appears on Atlas Obscura or something like that. I don't want to deal with people trying to look in my windows. You know, I like playing my video games in my underwear. I want to do it without people peeking in.
I just have the shirt on, nothing else. I podcast.
In some states, peeking in windows like that could get you shot.
A lot of states.
That's right. That's right.
So I'll there's some other ones, but I'm going to skip down to, I think, Dave's favorite one. It's people who don't believe in the supernatural might still be superstitious. Half reported they'd be less likely to buy a home if it was haunted.
We'll start with Kenny on that one.
All right, that's cool. Let me go down to the quotes that I like to read. I want to read this because let's see. The fact that people who report not believing in the supernatural aren't immune to the high creepiness factor is a bit surprising. Knowing a murder occurred in your home is one thing, but haunted houses are a different story. If you don't believe in ghosts, why not buy the house? One possibility is that people are concerned about mysterious noises. There could be crack in the water heater or pest infestation. Potential buyers might be more worried in the future about maintenance costs. Still, there's likely a bit of cognitive dissonance going on for home buyers who supposedly don't believe in the supernatural. I thought this was kind of silly, the way it's worded here, because we have no indication of what's going on here. We don't have an indication of why non-believers will not buy or prefer not to buy a haunted house. We don't know why. So this about if you don't believe in ghosts, why not buy the house? And talking about cognitive dissonance, this is an assumption on the author's part.
Well, yeah, but they do. To be fair, they say one possibility and might.
Right.
They didn't definitively say that's it. And I think the way they're using cognitive dissonance here is just basically saying they're seeing a inconsistency in what people say they believe and their behavior.
I guess to respond to that is that we don't know that. We don't know if that's the case. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. It's a good point. But if somebody says, I don't believe in haunted houses, but I'm still not likely or less likely to buy a haunted house, why?
Well,
that is the question.
Yeah, exactly. That is the question. We don't know. For the reason, like I just explained, is that I might not want to have that attention. Has nothing to do with whether I think there's ghosts in there and I'm creeped out. It might be just I don't want people coming up to my door, you know, or emailing me saying, "Hey, your house is haunted. Can we come investigate?"
$500.
There we go. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, if I'm not living in it, yeah. But I guess there's a lot of information we don't have here, and that's my issue. We don't know, and I guess the line at the end of this section is still there is likely a bit of cognitive dissonance. I mean, that again, that I see that line as this is an assumption and it's almost like a little, like, they're
Mhm.
still afraid. I think they're still afraid. I just didn't agree with that part.
Mm.
Oh, damn.
Sorry.
What the hell, Tim?
I was really hoping I was going to get to the mute. That's a little bit too. I should drink some more.
Late on the buzzer.
Oof. I started drinking an hour early, so this is my fault. Oh. JD, I would argue it might be different to not believe in ghosts as an intellectual practice, but emotionally to still feel uneasy. Kind of like a what if, or maybe like a.
Didn't they? I don't know if they talked about. No, I don't think there was anything I remember in here about talking about that. Might be different to not believe in ghosts as an intellectual practice, but maybe.
Yeah, I'm looking for it too as
I don't
well.
see anything where it even comes close to discussing any of that.
Right. More or less. Yeah, I don't know. I just, yeah.
Yeah, Daniel, this is what that's what I was thinking as well. Pascal's wager with ghosts. It's kind of like I don't believe it, but what if?
Right.
What if I'm wrong?
What if I'm wrong? Let's not gamble that. But yeah, I mean, I guess it really comes down to this. This looks like, and I don't want to say this in a way that sounds like I'm trashing it. I think this article is more along the lines of a combination between a fluff piece for Halloween and someone that is a data scientist.
Which she is.
Yes, and she's punching the numbers there. And I get it. I understand that part. There's so much information. I guess from people like us that are reading it, that are not just into the data, we're into that, knowing more. There's just so much information that's not available here. We really need to, next time, I think, if this idea comes up, even if it's like 2 days before, we got to just
the author
limit ourselves and say, no, we'll save it for the next show. We're going to reach out to the author and see if we can get the author in.
Yeah.
So I think that would really be beneficial because we could ask questions.
I think there's somewhere in here, did they talk about intellectual level?
Oh. I don't remember seeing that. Generations.
Nope.
Student loans. Gender.
Yeah, I don't see anything for intellectual. It didn't come up in this word search.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. I thought they did something about education level.
Geography.
Trying to look for it.
Hey, murdered.
Geography, buyer beware. Maybe not. Okay, I was probably wrong.
State disclosures. I have that.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if there was anything. That might have been another. I think they referenced an older or some other study from 2017 that may have had it in it. That might be the one I'm talking about or thinking about. Yeah, I don't see. They just talk about different age groups, gender.
Yeah.
That's about it, though.
Yeah, I don't see anything for education either. Background.
No, I think that was in another one. There was a Would You Live in a Haunted House from October 5th, 2017. So they've done this more than once.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think it was in that one. Which I'd have to look through. I don't remember. Anyway.
Yeah, Tiffany, I think that'd be kind of cool. It'd be interesting to see this repeated with more participants and refined.
Yeah,
you're always limited by the amount of time and the surveys and the money or whatever you're going to do to incent people to.
Yeah, they did spend $1,000 because at the end it says that
$1 each.
$1, yeah. So
it's not a big incentive.
I would have totally done it. Give me my $1.
So that reminds you, did they get 1,000 of them back or did they send 1,000 out?
They sent
1,000.
1,015, but I don't know how many they got back. Listen to us.
This is what happens when you
surveyed-
don't reread it 3-4
we
times.
surveyed 1,015 Americans.
Okay, but did they say how many
Yes.
sent it back?
No.
I got the impression that that's how many
That
they actually spoke to.
I was going to say there's no way, no how, anywhere that people get 100% response rate. So that may be the number they got back. We're not really sure how many they actually.
Yeah, because
they
it
just
does say
they
we
broadcast
surveyed.
it out. They didn't send it to people. They actually broadcast it or put it out on different sites and
Right.
things. So yeah, so okay. So they just got 1,000 and some responses. Got it.
Wow.
Okay, interesting.
Yep.
All right. What else you got?
There.
The last one on the key findings was the fun one, I guess. The people are more likely to buy a home if a pornography was filmed there than if it was reported to be haunted.
You know, I mean, is that part of disclosure? I mean, it's not like something bad that happened
I
there.
don't think so.
That's not. I guess. I mean, the only reason you would recognize that it was in porn is if you watch porn, and like on a regular basis, where you recognize the background. I mean, I recognize movie locations of movies that I've watched like dozens and dozens and dozens of times.
Yeah.
You know, like if something pops up, I'm like, oh shit, you know, like I know this place, but I don't know. And there are people looking at the background. Like,
So
I don't get this. This is a whole topic. This is a show topic, I think, we could do.
I mean, the fact that what did they say? Less likely to buy that 40%. I mean, that's a pretty well. Then again, we don't know the actual numbers to what
Sure.
Kenny said, but 40%. That it seems that's pretty high.
Yeah.
it's
And
I wish they had the damn numbers in here. Usually they have a link to some of the raw data, but maybe
that's
not
what I
for that.
looked for too, was a link to the raw data. I don't understand, I guess, a whole other, not to go down this rabbit hole, but like why, if you have consenting adults and you have participants that are able to consent, so there's no donkeys or whatever you guys were saying, as long as you have consenting adults and they consent to be filmed, like why are they presenting it like why is this horrible?
Why would you even care? I mean, really,
Yeah, why would you even care? Like they
I don't know. Maybe they're
consented.
trying to put it into perspective of the other irrational, not even irrational, but other things that just bother people. I don't know. And
That's true.
Let's say your level of agreeing with pornography or not probably is based on a belief system.
Sure,
And maybe
absolutely.
a religious belief system or other things. So that maybe that's why they asked the question. Again, it would have been good to have the researcher on to take a look at that.
And I'm looking at this other chart, more likely to buy, and it's got haunted, murdered, died of natural causes near cemetery, and supernatural believers are up
significantly. Looks like it.
Yeah. Almost like 15 to 20% higher than non-believers. But again, I guess it comes back to, is this based on their belief in the supernatural, or belief that, you know, like somebody that died of natural causes in the house would somehow be haunting the house? Is it based on that, or is it based on, hey, we might get this cheap because this person died and it's an estate now and they're going to sell it off? Or even like murder, somebody that's murdered. I mean, I don't know if it's morbid, but I look at those things. If I see a house that goes for sale and it's a result of somebody who was murdered in that house, my first thought is, well, because of that reputation, are they going to sell it at a lower price than appraised? Yeah. And it really has nothing to do with a belief that maybe there's a vengeful ghost that's going to come back and get me. It's, hey, the reputation alone is going to lower the price. So yeah, I think we should circle back to this.
And
Sure.
And at what point do people take advantage of situations saying, "Ooh, I knew somebody was murdered in that house. That's a really nice house. I know I can offer them 10 to 20 grand less just to get the
Right.
house."
Yeah, and if it's on the market for a while, yeah, I mean, near a cemetery. I mean, I love
that.
quiet neighbors.
Dude,
So,
I was going to say near a
Talking about
cemetery.
peaceful walks in the
Yes.
evening.
yes,
And put a webcam on there. Imagine the money you can make doing that. Just watch the haunted cemetery.
our buddy Aaron.
Yeah.
His house backs up against the
That's
cemetery.
right. Him and
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his wife's name. Anyway, yeah, they were talking about that when I talked to him at the Gettysburg
Yeah,
together.
They could put a live stream cam right into the cemetery.
I know. We charge people $1 a month.
$1 a month. Hell
Watch
yeah.
for ghosts.
That'd almost be as much as you make on the survey.
There you go. So yeah, I don't think there's really anything else I had.
No, me neither.
Well,
I did want to bring up one thing though.
Mhm.
With all this talk about people buying houses that have a reputation for being haunted, whether they would buy them or whether they weren't, would not buy them, and does it affect your resale value?
Mm-hmm.
And I have one good example of a haunted house. It's a famous haunted house. It's the Conjuring house,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's not a huge house, but it's a decent sized house.
Mm-hmm.
It's on some land. It's cool. But last year, in fact, a year from this month, it sold for $1.525 million. With the I guess what is that? It's not a disclaimer.
Disclosure.
It's in the contract that they must continue to use it as a like for ghost hunters to come rent the place. So it's a business basically.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean that's one of the top famous haunted houses. And it sold for $1.5 million. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
But it's a supposedly famous place. Famous, which are they paying that money for the fact that supposedly something went on there, or the fact that it's just famous?
Right.
And are they trying to turn a profit on it?
I would assume so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you're gonna have people show up and stare in your windows and bug you all the time, you might as well make some damn money on the place if it's that famous.
Right. I agree.
Free market, man. Free market.
But that's again, jumping that into the mix or throwing that into the mix here. Yeah. We don't know if that's one of the possibilities here.
The study itself actually, I mean, it opens up a lot of good possibilities of other things to look at and do other studies on and polls and surveys on them.
Right.
So,
yeah, it gave the state disclosure rules. I thought I was going to just hit that at the closing as well. So it's hover over each state to view the haunted disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
So looks like in the black. Well, you can't see it. Hold on. I was
gonna say it didn't show up in my printed copy, and that really pisses me off.
Hold on. And here I am. I'm starting to get a little.
We were talking about that before the show. You print one of these articles, and the little graphics don't print, and it's like, damn it! I'm not gonna go back and download every one of them.
So here's just state disclosure rules. So like if their place is alleged to be haunted, I guess, or something happened. Down here, it just says no indicates that sellers and agents are not legally responsible for disclosures.
Okay.
Some requirements indicates that some information must be disclosed under certain circumstances. I wish that would have been nice to know what those are. And if asked means sellers and agents are legally required to answer a question if asked. By contrast, all states require truthfulness if one chooses to disclose, but not all require disclosure upon request.
Okay.
So all the things in orange have no disclosure. The ones in black have some disclosure, not legally responsible for disclosing. And if asked.
Yeah. We, my New York, which I am a New Yorker now, we have the most famous disclosure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Literally called the Ghostbusters ruling.
Must disclose, New York, some requirements must disclose paranormal suspicion only if that information has been disclosed to the public.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
because the house that was in question, the potential buyer found out about it from reading stories in Reader's Digest, which I have a original copy of that, where the owner herself wrote the ghost stories of the house, which bit her in the ass.
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
pretty cool. I liked the study. It was very interesting. I thought it was fun. I could see that as a fluff piece and a fun piece at the end for something to do around October.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of kind of circling back around at some point and seeing if she would be willing to come on to talk about the study.
That would be cool.
Yeah. That would be really cool. All right.
So my disclosure is the person that used to own our house passed away in our bedroom.
And you're good.
No ghosts.
Okay.
No ghosts.
No. You sure?
Nothing. Yep.
Did they pass away while filming a porn though? That could be a problem.
Heart attack.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
While high on meth. High on meth in a porn, passed away.
Maybe you're just not open to it, Tim.
Maybe.
You're not experiencing it right.
Yes.
You're
so closed-minded.
I need crystals. That would help.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
anyway,
the house that I bought, or the house that my office bought, was a meth house, and we did a lot of work to clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
But it was notorious in our town, in the town where my office is, and when we bought it and began, fixing it up, I got several emails and some calls from people that I knew and were good friends and knew that in my past life, I was a ghost hunter. And they began asking me questions about the house just by the reputation, which I kind of think it kind of circles back around to maybe the price. I don't know, but they asked, did I see any scratch marks in the basement? And I'm like, I don't remember seeing any. And so like different rumors were that there was a meth lab in the basement and the meth lab caught on fire. And rather than calling the fire department, the owners of the meth lab shut the door and locked the people in the basement and let them burn to death. And that they've heard that the scratches are still on the door trying to get outside. So I was kind of like, okay, let's break this down. If there was a fire in the basement that was hot enough to kill people, I imagine the rest of the house above it would not still be around probably. Mm-hmm. But, going back to the rumors and the property value, a lot of people were afraid of that house. They didn't like that house at all. And it might be one of the reasons we got it so cheap.
There you go. Good deal.
This other chart, the state differences, I'm a little confused by the numbers. It says percentage of respondents who believe in the supernatural or reported they would be more likely to purchase a home if it was haunted, if someone was murdered there, or if it was located near a cemetery. So my confusion is, like, for the top, it says Arizona believes in the supernatural, 14%. And then it has, like, more likely to buy a haunted house or a murder house or near a cemetery. It has percentages. Are those percentages of that 14%? Or for the total? I don't understand.
Can you pull that up, Tim? Because I don't have the graphics on the.
Yeah, give me a second. I closed out my paper.
Some of the numbers are actually interesting. Oh, I can share it.
Oh, yeah, you can share it. Sorry.
On that window. All right. There.
It's an eye exam test.
There you go.
All right, let's lean in here so I can read
Old
this.
man.
I know it's awful.
So, yeah. Maybe somebody can clarify this for me, because I'm not sure if like 20% of this 14% are likely to buy a haunted house, or is this just 20% of respondents?
Maybe it's across the board.
Yeah, I think it's the people in Arizona, 14% of the people of the surveys from the state of Arizona, 14% of them believed in the supernatural. 20% were more likely to buy a haunted house. 13 more likely to buy a murder house, and 7 more likely to buy near a cemetery. I think that's just taking the state and breaking down the percentages of people that responded that way in each state.
Because I found some of these interesting, like Oregon, 39% believe in the paranormal, but 0% were more likely to buy a haunted house.
But like you said, though, if it was 10, if the cutoff was 10,
right,
10 people,
the lower limit.
I mean, or 20 people, 30 people. I mean, those numbers are still fairly low.
And it's, that's why like this is all confusing to me.
If you did 1,000 in each state, that would be a little more.
That would be cool.
Meaningful.
That would be cool. All right, I'm done here.
Yeah, typically you want a decent survey result for a poll. You need at least 100 people, minimum 100.
Yeah.
So when you start getting into these,
a lot,
anything less than that, you're not going to have really any level of confidence in any of that.
Right.
All right. Well, I'll closing thoughts for me. I like the paper. I like where it went. I fully am aware of what we were talking about. I guess some of the things that are troublesome, but I get the feeling, and I could be wrong, I just kind of got the feeling that you had a well-educated, experienced data scientist that was like writing for someone, and they were like, hey, we need a paper for October. And she's like, I got this. And then sent out this information just to have something fun, but do it in it looks like it's in a proper way.
She knew what she was doing, at least from the methodology that was limited, but the description was limited, but it looks like she knew what she was doing for sure.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I think it was fun. I just think it was fun. And I enjoyed it. It certainly got us talking about it. And she was smart enough to stick in the pornography house, because that's probably what we laughed about the most. And
it was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny. All right. So Kenny?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this article was interesting, and it caught our interest. And I really enjoyed going through it. And it opened more questions. And that's, even though I brought up a lot of issues and questions that I had about it, that doesn't mean I didn't like it. It means that it engaged me. I was totally engaged, and I want to know more. So I'm totally on board with contacting the author and talking to her and having her on a future show.
Yeah,
I think would be really fun. Because I'm left in limbo. I think that's where I am. Like, I read this and I'm like, all right, it's interesting, but I don't know where to go with this. I don't know where to go from here. Because it's like, all right, what's this mean? It's more like just a breakdown to do a breakdown rather than really come to a substantial point. So I want to know more. I guess she did the perfect job and left me wanting more.
Perfect.
There you go.
All right. So yeah, interesting. Got us talking. It was a kind of a last minute switch, but it was a good one. It's always fun when there's some data involved that we can dive into and talk about and pick apart a little bit. And it had some interesting things that stood out. It had some funny things that stood out, and I guess I probably wouldn't classify myself as somebody who would be less likely to buy a haunted house. Obviously, I'd be more than happy to do that, and I'd probably be more than happy to pay a little more for it to outbid Kenny, because then I could charge him to come. It'll pay my
That's
mortgage.
right.
It'll be fine. He's got a big budget, so
Yeah.
anyway, I thought it was interesting. Good call, Tim.
Yes.
All right. So anybody got anything interesting coming up they want to announce before we sign off and I screw up the ending?
I can say real quick. I'm
Yes.
going to go first this time, so you bitches don't just go, I don't know that Kenny got everything.
So everybody, once Kenny's done, the show's basically over. So
yeah. Basically, we just carried Kenny's luggage.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting on. I'm waiting on. We're still tearing as well. We're all still waiting on our W-2s.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right,
You carry my luggage, but you definitely don't protect me from the crazy people.
dude.
Kenny, you need a different security guy, man.
Yeah. I need
You
you need 2 shifts. Like, I think. I
Yeah, but
think
we're
there's
both
enough.
old, Tim. We go to bed at like 9 o'clock. He's on his own.
I think there's enough data to support that I am exactly the perfect security person, because none of this shit happens when I'm there.
See, this is
always-
how you interpret data properly.
There you go.
That's
All about
right.
Perspective.
Love you too, Donna. It's always like
funny.
that guy. Don't fuck with Kenny because that guy from West Virginia is there. And
As soon as he leaves, let's get in his face, man.
yeah, they're like, we don't know about
Hilarious.
West Virginia.
Uh,
We've
Alright.
heard rumors of what they do to people.
oh my gosh.
All right, go, Kenny.
All right. So this weekend, if you're in the area, this is not paranormal, but if you're in the area, there's a place called Antique World. It's a big antique vintage flea market kind of thing, and they're having their big opening season on Sunday. So if you're in the area, you want to come by, because I'll be there all day, because there's like hundreds and hundreds of vendors. So I'm going to buy a lot of things. Next weekend is the Rochester Parafest, which is in Rochester, New York. I'll be there, set up. Friday night's like a VIP party, which I'll be going to and partying and drinking, because
Of course.
yeah. And then Saturday, Sunday is the fest. They're going to have a car show on Sunday, and there's a bunch of different vendors. It's not just paranormal stuff. It's a variety of vendors there. So crafters like Donna will be set up with her Lucky Tiki creations, so she'll have stuff like that there. And that's all for now, really. I mean, there's a few things coming up, but I don't really want to get into too much. So I'm going to end it there.
All right.
Fair enough. I think Dave and Ma coming up is going to be the same. So go ahead,
Pretty
Dave.
similar. So we
Yep.
do this show first Wednesday of every month with Kenny Biddle and Tim Vickers, called Thee Tortured Souls. So please show up and do that. One exciting piece of news: the paper we've been talking about for quite a while is finally out and published. Electromagnetic field profile and baselines at a non-haunted control location, in the Journal of Scientific Exploration. What is it? Volume 37, number 1, spring 2023. This is one of the few journals that is actually open in public access. So you can go and download the article and check it out. And we've posted it on our Thee Tortured Souls Facebook page. I got it a couple other places. And next week, or not next week, sorry, I'm still used to the old format. Next month, we will be talking about the paper itself and the process we went through to publish it.
Yeah, I'm going to have
Sweet
to
Dave.
like read it several more times so I could talk about it.
You guys might want to read this one before we get on the show, because
Yeah, good.
you are co-authors.
Day before.
Day before.
That's it.
Hour
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming and listening. I enjoyed this show. I love doing this with you guys. It's a lot of fun. I hope in the future we do find or reach out to the doctor and she'll come in and maybe talk about it a little bit. But other than that, thank you guys for listening. And I am going to
Try not to fuck up.
find the
David, Kenny
video
always
clips
like,
and
Can he do
no,
it? Can he do it?
no.
Can you do it? No. No.
No dead air. You're making me repeat myself. Okay, I got
No
it.
dead air. No dead
All right.
air.
So I'll see you guys next month.
All right. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.
Thee Tortured Souls, Thee Tortured Souls, Thee Tortured Souls. Even the real, the stuff to need. Even the real, big but it's real. Don't question me. 10 years ago, 10 years out, 10 years ago. Those that are low, I'm on TV. Thee Tortured Souls, Thee Tortured Souls, Thee Tortured Souls, Thee Tortured Souls. Careful what you say or you'll get in better.